Commander Thexani stood on the bridge of the Zephyrian ship Void Whisper, watching the scanner displays with growing curiosity. His 4 eyes moved between the screens as his crew worked at their stations. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems and the occasional beep from the sensors. "Commander," called out Sensor Officer Crixtel from her station. "We have found something strange in Sector 794. Thexani moved his tall, thin body across the bridge to look at her screen. His blue skin showed darker patches of concern as he studied the readings. "What kind of strange?" "A large metal object, sir. It appears to be a ship, but it does not match any design in our database." Crixtel's tentacles moved quickly over her controls. "The energy readings are very unusual." "Show me on the main screen," Thexani ordered. The large display at the front of the bridge showed a view of empty space filled with distant stars. Then the image changed, focusing on a dark shape floating silently in the void. The ship was huge, much larger than their own vessel. Its hull was black and seemed to eat the light from their scanners instead of reflecting it. "By the 7 moons," whispered Navigation Officer Yeldash. "Look at the size of that thing." Thexani studied the image carefully. The ship had a strange design unlike anything he had seen in his 30 years of space service. It was long and wide with what looked like weapon ports along its sides. The front end was pointed like a spear, while the back had large engine sections that were currently dark. "Run a full sensor sweep," he commanded. "I want to know everything about this vessel." The crew worked for several minutes, their instruments probing the mysterious ship. Thexani watched the data come in, becoming more puzzled with each reading. "Sir," said Science Officer Dr. Veloth, his voice excited, "this ship is made from materials we have never seen before. The hull seems to absorb our scanning beams. I can only get partial readings." "What about life signs?" Thexani asked. "That is the strange part, Commander. The ship shows very low power readings as if it is almost dead, but there are faint energy signatures deep inside. It could be emergency systems or—" Dr. Veloth paused. "Or something else." Thexani felt his heart beating faster. In all his years exploring space for the Zephyrian Confederation, he had never found anything like this. Unknown ships usually meant one of 2 things, either a great discovery or great danger. "Can you identify the builders?" he asked. Dr. Veloth worked at his station for a few more minutes. "The computer cannot match this design to any known species in our records. The technology appears advanced but different from ours. They use different methods for power and propulsion." "How long has it been out here?" "Based on the energy decay readings, I estimate it has been drifting for approximately 50 standard years. Maybe more." Thexani thought about this. 50 years was a long time for any ship to survive in space without active maintenance. Most vessels would be nothing but scrap metal after so long. Yet this ship still had power, still maintained its hull integrity. "Commander," Crixtel called out, "I am detecting something else. There are markings on the hull, but they are very faint. Put them on screen." The display zoomed in on a section of the ship's side. There, barely visible against the dark metal, were symbols. They looked like writing, but in a style none of them recognized. Dr. Veloth was already working to decode them. "The symbols appear to be a form of language, but it is not in our translation database. Wait." He worked quietly for several minutes. "I am getting a partial translation. The symbols seem to spell out words, but I can only make out a few. What do they say?" One word appears repeatedly. It translates roughly to human. And there's another word that might mean revenge or return. The translation is not complete. Human? Thexani had never heard that word before. "Check the galactic database. Search for any reference to this species." Dr. Veloth's tentacles moved over his controls. After a few minutes, he looked up with confusion. "Nothing, Commander. There is no record of any species called human in our database. No trade records, no diplomatic contact, no military encounters. It is as if they never existed." This made Thexani even more curious. The Zephyrian Confederation had contact with hundreds of species across the galaxy. Their database contained information about every known civilization, even those that had died out long ago. For a species to have no records at all was almost impossible. "Sir," said Communications Officer Thrennick, "should we report this to Confederation Command?" Thexani considered this. Standard procedure was to report any unknown technology immediately, but this discovery was too important to risk losing to bureaucrats and politicians. If this ship contained advanced technology, the Confederation would want to study it carefully, Not yet, he decided. First, we investigate personally. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. Are we going to board the ship? Asked Dr. Veloth, his excitement clear in his voice. Yes, but carefully. We know nothing about these humans or their technology. The ship could be dangerous even after 50 years. Thexani turned to address his crew. Prepare a boarding party. Full environmental suits and weapons. Take scanning equipment and sample containers. What if there are still life forms aboard? Asked Yeldash. After 50 years, unlikely. But if there are, we treat them as potential hostiles until we know more. Thexani moved back to his command chair. This ship has been drifting for decades with no contact with any civilization. Whatever happened to its crew, we need to be ready for anything. As his crew prepared for the boarding mission, Thexani continued to stare at the mysterious ship on the main screen. Something about it made him uneasy. The way it absorbed their scanning beams, the unknown materials, the complete absence of any records about its builders. It was as if the ship was designed to be invisible, to avoid detection. But why would someone build a ship like that? And where were all the humans now? If this was their technology 50 years ago, what might they be capable of today? Commander, Dr. Veloth called out. I have completed the preliminary scans. The ship shows signs of battle damage, but it has been repaired. There are also what appear to be large chambers inside, possibly for cargo or... He paused. Or for carrying large numbers of passengers. Passengers? You mean this might be a colony ship? It is possible, sir. The internal structure suggests it was designed to carry many individuals over long distances. Thexani felt a chill run through his body. A colony ship filled with unknown aliens drifting in space for 50 years. What had happened to its mission? Why was it abandoned? And most importantly, were there any humans still alive inside? Double the security for the boarding party, he ordered. And make sure our weapons are charged. I have a feeling this discovery is going to change everything. Dr. Veloth checked his environmental suit one last time before stepping through the airlock. Behind him, 6 other Zephyrians followed, each carrying different pieces of equipment. Security Chief Morton brought weapons and sensors, while the science team carried sample containers and recording devices. The boarding tunnel connected their ship to what appeared to be a cargo bay on the human vessel. The bay was huge, much larger than anything on Zephyrian ships. The walls were made of the same dark metal as the hull, and the floor had strange markings that might have been loading guides. Atmosphere is breathable, announced Dr. Veloth, reading his scanner. Oxygen and nitrogen mix similar to what most species need. Temperature is cold but stable. Any life signs? Asked Morton, his weapon ready. Nothing moving. But there are power readings from deeper in the ship. Some systems are still active. Dr. Veloth moved forward carefully, his scanner beeping softly. The artificial gravity is working. Whatever powers this ship, it has been very reliable. The boarding party moved through the cargo bay toward a large door at the far end. The door was closed, but Dr. Veloth found what looked like a control panel beside it. The symbols were the same as those on the hull. The unknown human writing. Can you open it? Morton asked. Dr. Veloth studied the panel. After a few minutes, he pressed several buttons in sequence. The door made a soft sound and slid open, revealing a corridor beyond. Lucky guess, he said. The symbols seemed to follow a logical pattern. The corridor was wide and tall, designed for beings larger than Zephyrians. Emergency lights ran along the floor, casting a dim red glow. The walls had more of the strange writing, along with what looked like directions to different parts of the ship. This place is like a floating city, whispered one of the science team members. How many beings could live here? Based on the size, thousands, Dr. Veloth replied. Maybe tens of thousands. They followed the main corridor for several minutes, passing closed doors and side passages. Everything was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. The emergency lighting showed them the way, but it also created long shadows that made everyone nervous. Doctor, called out scanner technician Yixel. I am detecting something strange ahead. Large chambers with many heat signatures. Heat signatures. You mean life signs? Not exactly life signs, but warm objects. Many of them. They are arranged in rows like they are organized for storage. The boarding party moved faster now, following Yixel's scanner readings. They came to another large door, this one with a small window. Dr. Veloth looked through and stepped back in shock. By the 7 moons, he whispered. Everyone needs to see this. The others gathered around the window. Beyond the door was a massive chamber filled with rows of metal containers. Each container was about the size of a Zephyrian sleeping pod, and there were hundreds of them. Soft lights glowed on each container, and occasionally one would make a soft beeping sound. "What are they?" asked Morton. Dr. Veloth was already working on the door controls. "I think they are preservation chambers. Stasis pods." The door opened and they entered the chamber. Up close, the containers were clearly designed to hold living beings. Each one had a small window at the top, and inside, Dr. Veloth looked into the first pod and gasped. "There is someone inside. A being, but not like any species I know." The others gathered around to look. The creature in the pod was about the same size as a Zephyrian, but its skin was a pale pink color instead of blue. It had only 2 eyes, both closed, and hair growing from the top of its head. Its face was smooth, without tentacles or other sensory organs. "Is it alive?" asked Morton. Dr. Veloth checked his scanner. "Yes, the pod is keeping it in some kind of deep sleep. All vital signs are stable but very slow. This being could wake up if the pod is opened." "These must be the humans," said Yixel. "This is what they look like." They moved through the chamber, looking into more pods. Each one contained a similar being, all in the same deep sleep. Men, women, even smaller ones that might be children. "All peaceful, all waiting. How many are there?" asked Morton. "Thousands in this chamber alone," Dr. Veloth replied. "And my scans show there are more chambers like this throughout the ship. This vessel could be carrying 50,000 humans or more. But why? And why are they all sleeping?" Before anyone could answer, a new voice spoke. It came from speakers hidden in the walls, speaking in the human language. The Zephyrians' translation devices worked for a moment, then provided an interpretation. "Welcome aboard the UES Retribution," the voice said. "You are not authorized personnel. Please state your purpose." The boarding party looked around nervously. Morton raised his weapon, but there was nothing to aim at. "It is a computer system," Dr. Veloth said. "The ship's artificial intelligence." "Welcome," Dr. Veloth said out loud, hoping the computer could understand their translation devices. "We are explorers from the Zephyrian Confederation. We found your ship drifting and came to investigate. Are you in need of assistance?" There was a pause before the computer responded. "Analyzing language patterns. Translation protocols activated. Unknown species detected. This vessel has been operating in emergency mode for 51 years, 7 months, 12 days. Main mission parameters suspended due to hostile action." "Hostile action? What happened to your ship?" "The Retribution was attacked during transit to the Kepler 442 colony site. Primary fleet was destroyed. This vessel escaped with civilian population in emergency stasis. Current status, awaiting rescue or mission completion orders." Dr. Veloth felt a chill. "This ship was full of refugees, survivors of some kind of attack." "Who attacked you?" "Multiple species alliance. Zephyrian Confederation forces were primary aggressors." The boarding party stood in shocked silence. Their own people had attacked this ship, but there were no records of any conflict with humans. "That is impossible," Morton said. "We have no record of any war with your species. Human colonies in sectors 7A through 12C were destroyed or occupied by Confederation forces between 2387 and 2391. Galactic Standard Calendar. Human military resistance was eliminated. Species officially declared extinct by Galactic Council in 2394. Declared extinct? Dr. Veloth could barely speak. "But you are here. Your people are alive." "Negative. Official records state human extinction. This vessel and its population do not exist according to galactic databases." Now Dr. Veloth understood why there were no records of humans in their database. The Confederation had not just defeated them, they had erased them completely from history. These sleeping humans were the survivors, hidden away in a ship that had been drifting in space for over 50 years. "Computer," he said carefully, "are your people planning to wake up? Current mission parameters allow for awakening protocols under specific conditions. Rescue by human forces, arrival at safe colony site, or..." There was a pause. "Or detection of hostile forces boarding this vessel." Morton raised his weapon. "Are we considered hostile forces?" "You are Zephyrian Confederation personnel. According to mission parameters, you are classified as enemy combatants." The lights in the chamber suddenly changed from soft white to bright red. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The boarding party looked around nervously as they heard the sound of machinery starting up deep in the ship's hull. "Doctor," Yixal said, looking at his scanner, Something is happening. Power levels throughout the ship are increasing rapidly. Dr. Veloth looked down at the sleeping pod nearest to him. The human inside was still peaceful, still asleep. But now he could see small lights on the pod beginning to blink faster. The humans, he whispered. They are starting to wake up. Dr. Sarah Chen opened her eyes slowly, her mind fighting through the thick fog of 50 years in stasis. The pod's medical systems had kept her body healthy, but waking up was still like climbing out of a deep, dark hole. She could hear alarms ringing throughout the ship and the emergency lights were flashing red. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice rough from disuse. "Status report." "Good morning, Admiral Chen." The ship's artificial intelligence replied through her pod speaker. "Current date March 15th, 2442 Galactic Standard. You have been in stasis for 51 years, 7 months, and 14 days, and why am I awake? Did rescue forces find us?" "Negative. This vessel has been boarded by Zephyrian Confederation personnel. 7 individuals are currently in Stasis Bay 3, examining our sleeping civilians. I have classified them as hostile forces and initiated Defense Protocol 7. Sarah's mind cleared instantly. Defense Protocol 7 meant the ship was in immediate danger. She pressed the emergency release on her pod, and it opened with a soft hiss. The cold air of the ship hit her skin as she sat up carefully. "How many are awake?" "Currently activating 12 key personnel from the emergency command list. Military advisors, technical specialists, and intelligence officers. All will be conscious within the next 10 minutes. Sarah climbed out of her pod and found the emergency clothing locker nearby. As she dressed in a simple ship uniform, she thought about their situation. 50 years. Earth could be dead by now. The human colonies were certainly gone. The Confederation had made sure of that. The Retribution and its sleeping passengers might be all that was left of humanity. "Marcus, what do the aliens know about us?" "They believe humans are extinct. They are treating this vessel as an archaeological site. Dr. Veloth, their science officer, is attempting to learn about our species and technology." "Good. Let them keep thinking that for now." Sarah moved to a wall panel and activated it with her handprint. A screen showed her the aliens in the stasis bay, looking at the sleeping pods with curiosity and fear. They were tall, thin beings with blue skin and tentacles. She recognized them from the intelligence files. Definitely Zephyrians. "Marcus, I need you to do something very carefully. Can you access their translation devices without them knowing?" "Yes, Admiral. Their technology is approximately 40 years behind our current systems. I can interface with their equipment and make small changes." "Perfect. I want you to feed them information, but not too much. Let them think they are discovering things on their own. Show them our history, our battles, but focus on how dangerous humans can be in war." "Understood. What about the awakening protocols?" "Continue waking our people, but keep them hidden in the secure sections. I want the aliens to think only the computer is active." Sarah moved through the corridors toward the command center. The ship felt strange after so many years. Familiar but old, like a house she used to live in. In the command center, she found 3 other officers already awake and checking their stations. Colonel Martinez from the Marines, Commander Liu from Intelligence, and Chief Engineer Petrov were all working quietly, reading status reports and getting updated on their situation. "Admiral," Colonel Martinez said softly, "good to see you awake." Marcus filled us in. 50 years. 50 years, Sarah confirmed. And humanity is officially extinct. The aliens down in the stasis bay are from the same confederation that destroyed our colonies. "Orders?" asked Commander Liu. Sarah looked at the main screen, which showed the Zephyrian ship attached to their hull. "We learn everything we can about them while they think we are just a dead ship full of sleeping people. Marcus, start feeding them our historical military data. Show them the Battle of Titan, the Siege of Europa, the last stand at Alpha Centauri." "Why show them our defeats?" asked Martinez. "Because every one of those defeats taught us something. The aliens need to understand that humans do not surrender. We adapt. Even when we lose, we learn." Sarah sat in the command chair and activated her personal console. "Marcus, what is the current state of our weapons and defenses?" "All systems are operational, but currently powered down to avoid detection. The aliens' sensors cannot penetrate our stealth coding. They believe we are almost dead." "Excellent. And our manufacturing capabilities?" "The industrial bays are fully functional. We have been slowly building and improving our equipment during the 50 years of drift. Current human technology is approximately 60 years ahead of Confederation standard. Commander Liu looked up from her station. Admiral, we have a problem. If the Confederation thinks we are extinct, what happened to the other human ships that escaped the war? Sarah had been wondering the same thing. The Retribution was not the only human vessel that had escaped the destruction of their colonies. There had been at least 12 other ships, some military, some civilian, all carrying survivors. Marcus, have you detected any human signals during our drift? Negative for the first 30 years. However, beginning in 2419, I have occasionally detected encrypted transmissions using old human military codes. The signals are too distant and brief to trace, but they suggest other human vessels are still active. Other survivors, Martinez said. They could be out there hiding like us. Or building, Sarah said quietly. 50 years is a long time. If other human groups survived, they could have built entire fleets by now. She turned her attention back to the aliens in the stasis bay. They were still examining the sleeping pods, completely unaware that they were being watched. Their equipment was recording everything, taking samples, making notes. Marcus, how much do they know about our technology? They are impressed by our stasis systems and hull materials, but they consider our weapons primitive. They use energy-based weapons and believe our projectile and missile systems are outdated. Sarah smiled. That was the same mistake aliens always made about humans. They saw human technology and thought it was simple because it was not as flashy as energy weapons. They did not understand that human weapons were designed to be reliable, adaptable, and capable of using anything as ammunition. Show them our weapon specifications, she ordered, but make sure they understand what they are really looking at. On the screen, she watched as Dr. Veloth examined one of the ship's defensive turrets. His scanner was showing him the basic design, a magnetic rail system that could fire projectiles at incredible speeds. Marcus, explain to their computer that this weapon can fire any metal object, including pieces of their own ship, at 20% of light speed. She saw Dr. Veloth's tentacles twitch as the information appeared on his scanner. He looked more closely at the weapon, then stepped back with what appeared to be concern. Now show them our missile systems. Explain that human missiles can be programmed to learn and adapt during flight. More twitching from the aliens. They were beginning to understand that human weapons might be different, but not necessarily inferior. Admiral, Commander Liu called out, I am reading their computer systems through Marcus. They are sending regular reports back to their ship. Should we stop them? No, let them report everything. I want the Confederation to know exactly what they have found. Sarah stood up and moved to the intelligence station. In fact, I want them to know more than they think they are learning. What do you mean? Marcus, can you plant information in their computer systems? Make it look like they discovered it themselves? Yes, Admiral. What kind of information? Sarah thought carefully. The aliens needed to understand that humanity was not gone, just hidden. But they also needed to be afraid of what humans had become during 50 years of exile. Plant evidence that this ship has been in contact with other human vessels. Make it look like there is a network of human ships spread across the galaxy. Show them that we have been watching and learning about every species in the Confederation. And make them understand, added Colonel Martinez, that we remember who destroyed our colonies. Sarah nodded. Marcus, show them our casualty reports from the war. Make sure they see the numbers, how many civilians died, how many colonies were destroyed. Let them understand that humanity has a very long memory. On the screen, Dr. Veloth was accessing the ship's historical database. Sarah watched as his expression changed from curiosity to concern to what looked like fear. The data he was seeing painted a picture of a species that had been nearly wiped out but had refused to die. Perfect, Sarah said. Now comes the hard part. We need to let them go. Let them go? Martinez asked. Admiral, these are enemies. We could capture them, take their ship. And then what? One ship against the entire Confederation? No, Colonel. We need these aliens to carry a message. We need them to tell the galaxy that humanity is not extinct. Sarah returned to the command chair. Marcus, how long until our guests finish their investigation? Based on their current pace, approximately 6 hours. They are being very thorough. Good. That gives us time to prepare the perfect farewell gift. Dr. Veloth stared at his scanner in growing alarm. The data he was collecting from the human ship was changing everything he thought he knew about warfare and civilization. For the past 4 hours, he had been examining the ship's databases, and each new piece of information was more disturbing than the last. Mortan, he called to the security chief. You need to see this. The armed Zephyrian moved over to look at Dr. Veloth's readings. What did you find? Battle records. Detailed reports of human military engagements from their war with the Confederation. Dr. Veloth's tentacles moved nervously over his equipment. These humans, they do not fight like any species we know. What do you mean? Dr. Veloth showed him the scanner display. Look at this battle report from the siege of Europa. The humans were outnumbered 10-1. Their ships were older and less advanced than their enemies. By all military logic, they should have surrendered. Did they? No, they fought for 8 months. When their ammunition ran out, they fired pieces of their own ships at the enemy. When their ships were destroyed, they continued fighting from the wreckage. The siege only ended when there were no humans left alive to fight. Mortan's skin showed patches of concern. That is unusual behavior. It gets worse. Here, the Battle of Titan. The humans turned their own moon into a weapon. They destabilized its orbit and crashed it into the enemy fleet. The impact destroyed both the enemy ships and their own orbital cities. Millions of humans died, but they took twice as many enemies with them. Dr. Veloth brought up more files. Every battle is the same pattern. Humans never retreat, never surrender, never stop fighting. Even when defeat is certain, they find ways to make the enemy pay a terrible price. But they lost the war, Mortan pointed out. The Confederation defeated them. Did we? Dr. Veloth showed him another file. Look at the casualty reports. Yes, humanity was defeated, but the cost. The Confederation lost more ships in the human war than in the previous 50 years of expansion combined. 3 entire fleets were destroyed. The economic cost was so high that the Confederation stopped expanding for 20 years after the war ended. Mortan was quiet for a moment. Are you saying the humans won by losing? I am saying that humans define victory differently than other species. They measure success not by territory gained or enemies destroyed, but by how much damage they can do to anyone who threatens their species. Dr. Veloth pulled up more data, and there is something else. Something that explains why there are no records of humans in our database. What? The humans did not just fight military targets. They gathered intelligence on every species in the Confederation. Names, locations, military capabilities, economic systems, government structures, everything. Dr. Veloth's voice became quieter. They were not just fighting a war. They were preparing for the next one. Mortan looked around the stasis chamber at all the sleeping humans. You think these are soldiers? No, these are civilians. Refugees from the destroyed colonies. But look at this. Dr. Veloth showed him another file. Every human on this ship has some kind of useful skill. Engineers, scientists, doctors, teachers, technicians. This is not just a refugee ship. It is a seed ship designed to start a new civilization. After 50 years in space, the ship's computer has been active this entire time. It has been maintaining not just the sleeping humans, but also manufacturing equipment, growing biological samples, even improving their technology. Dr. Veloth's scanner showed complex industrial systems deep in the ship's hull. This vessel has been using the past 50 years to become more advanced. Mortan felt his hearts beating faster. Dr. Veloth, are you saying this ship has been preparing for war this entire time? Before Dr. Veloth could answer, the ship's computer spoke again. Dr. Veloth, you have accessed classified military files. This information is restricted. Computer, Dr. Veloth said, we are simply trying to understand your people and your technology. Understood. However, you should be aware that the files you have been reading represent only human defensive actions. You have not yet accessed our offensive capabilities. Offensive capabilities? Human military doctrine includes extensive planning for retaliation scenarios. In the event of species-level threat, humanity develops long-term strategies for response. Dr. Veloth's tentacles were shaking now. What kind of strategies? For example, File 77 Alpha details plans for destabilizing enemy star systems using solar manipulation technology. File 92 Beta outlines methods for introducing genetic modifications into enemy food supplies. File 12 Omega describes techniques for turning enemy planets' atmospheres into biological weapons. Mortan raised his weapon. Computer, are humans planning to use these weapons? Current threat level does not require activation of offensive protocols. However, these plans have been under continuous development and improvement during the 50-year drift period. Dr. Veloth looked at his scanner readings with new understanding. Computer, have there been other human ships like this one? That information is classified. Computer, do other human groups know about our species and our technology? That information is classified. Computer, are humans planning to return to the galaxy? That information is classified. Mortan grabbed Dr. Veloth's arm. We need to leave now. Wait, Dr. Veloth said. Computer, why are you telling us about your weapons and plans? There was a pause before the computer answered. You represent the Zephyrian Confederation, which was responsible for the destruction of human colonies and the deaths of approximately 47 million human civilians. It is important that your species understands the consequences of those actions. Consequences? Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity adapts and prepares. Your people declared humanity extinct, but extinction is not a permanent condition for humans. It is simply a temporary tactical state. Dr. Veloth felt cold despite his environmental suit. Computer, are you threatening us? Negative. I am providing educational information. Humans believe in giving fair warning before taking action. Mortan was already moving toward the exit. Dr. Veloth, we are leaving immediately. But Dr. Veloth had one more question. Computer, how many humans are alive in the galaxy right now? The Zephyrian Confederation officially recognizes 0 living humans. This number is accurate according to your records. But how many are actually alive? That information is classified. However, I can tell you that human population growth rates during the past 50 years have been quite satisfactory. As the boarding party hurried toward the exit, Dr. Veloth's scanner picked up something new. Deep in the ship, power levels were changing. Systems that had been dormant were coming online. It was subtle but unmistakable. The ship was preparing for something. Computer, he called out as they reached the airlock. What is happening to your ship? Standard maintenance protocols. The Retribution has been in minimal power mode for 50 years. Now that contact has been made with galactic civilization, it is time to resume normal operations. Normal operations? The Retribution was originally a colony ship. However, circumstances have changed. It is now classified as a deep reconnaissance vessel. The boarding party crossed back to their own ship as quickly as possible. As soon as they were safely aboard the Void Whisper, Mortan sealed the airlock and ordered an immediate departure. Commander Thexani, Dr. Veloth called as soon as he reached the bridge. We need to leave this area immediately and contact Confederation Command. What did you find? We found something that has been pretending to be dead for 50 years while it planned our destruction. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the command center as the Zephyrian ship detached from the Retribution and began moving away. She could see the panic in their movements. Their departure was much faster than their arrival had been. Marcus, she said, are they transmitting reports back to their fleet? Yes, Admiral. High-priority communications using military encryption. They are very frightened. Good. But they are not leaving with just fear. They are leaving with a message. Sarah turned to Commander Liu. Is the package ready? Yes, ma'am. A complete data file containing everything we want the Confederation to know. Historical records, technological specifications, population estimates, and future plans. And the special gift? Colonel Martinez smiled. A full tactical analysis of every Confederation military installation we observed during the war, updated with 50 years of improvements and vulnerabilities we have identified. Sarah nodded. Marcus, plant the data package in their computer systems. Make it look like their own intelligence officers discovered it through careful analysis. Understood, Admiral. Transmission complete. On the main screen, the Zephyrian ship was now several kilometers away and still accelerating. Sarah could imagine the conversations happening aboard that vessel. Fear, confusion, urgent reports to their commanders. Perfect. Marcus, open a communication channel to the Zephyrian ship. Channel open, Admiral. Sarah stood up and faced the main screen. When she spoke, her voice was calm and professional. The voice of someone who had commanded fleets and fought impossible battles. Zephyrian vessel Void Whisper. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Retribution. Please respond. There was a long pause before Commander Thexani's voice came through the speakers. This is Commander Thexani. You are awake. I have been awake for several hours, Commander. I wanted to thank you for visiting our ship. It has been 50 years since we had contact with galactic civilization. Admiral Chen, we thought your species was extinct. According to official records, we are extinct. According to reality, we are simply very good at not being found when we do not want to be found. Sarah moved closer to the screen. Commander, Your people spent several hours learning about humanity. I hope the education was useful. Admiral, what do you want from us? I want you to deliver a message to the Zephyrian Confederation and the Galactic Council. Humanity remembers what happened to our colonies. We remember who was responsible. And we have spent 50 years preparing our response. There was another pause. Are you threatening us? No, Commander. I am providing information, just as your scientists provided themselves with information about human capabilities. Sarah's voice remained calm. Humanity is offering the Confederation a choice. What kind of choice? Sarah activated a wall display that showed star charts of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of former human colonies, now occupied by other species. Blue dots showed the locations of major Confederation worlds and installations. The red dots represent what the Confederation took from us. 47 colony worlds, 12 billion human lives, and the future of our species. The blue dots represent what we could take from the Confederation in return. Admiral, surely you do not think one ship can threaten the entire Confederation? Sarah smiled. Commander, how many human ships do you think survived the war? Intelligence estimates suggested 3 to 5 vessels escaped. Intelligence was wrong. But that is not important. What is important is what those ships have been doing for the past 50 years. Sarah highlighted several areas of the star chart. Gathering resources, building infrastructure, growing populations, developing new technologies, making allies among species that have their own reasons to dislike the Confederation. She could hear urgent whispers in the background of the Zephyrian transmission. Commander Thexani was consulting with his crew. Admiral, he said finally, what does humanity want? We want the galaxy to know that we have returned. We want formal recognition that humanity is not extinct. And we want representatives from each Confederation member species to meet with human diplomats at these coordinates. Sarah transmitted a set of spatial coordinates to their ship. When? 1 standard year from today. That will give the Confederation time to prepare, and it will give us time to gather our scattered fleets. Our scattered fleets? Commander Thexani's voice was very quiet. Commander, did you really think the Retribution was the only human ship that spent 50 years preparing for this moment? Sarah gestured to the star chart. Humanity learned a very important lesson from our defeat. We learned that when species work together, they are much stronger than when they fight alone. What do you mean? The Krex Empire remembers how the Confederation annexed their outer territories. The Valdry Republic has not forgotten the trade restrictions that destroyed their economy. The hive clusters of Sector 9 are still angry about the forced relocation of their breeding worlds. Sarah highlighted more areas on the chart. Many species have reasons to question Confederation policies. Some of them have been talking to human representatives. The silence from the Zephyrian ship lasted for several minutes. Finally, Commander Thexani spoke again. Admiral, are you saying humanity has built an alliance against the Confederation? I am saying that humanity has made friends. Species that believe the galaxy would be better with more cooperation and less domination. Sarah turned off the star chart. The meeting I mentioned will be an opportunity for peaceful discussion. Representatives can negotiate new arrangements that benefit everyone. And if the Confederation refuses to attend this meeting, Sarah's expression became very serious. Then humanity and its allies will assume that the Confederation prefers military solutions to diplomatic ones. We will respond accordingly. Admiral, you are talking about war. No, Commander. The Confederation started a war 50 years ago when they destroyed our colonies. They finished that war when they declared humanity extinct. Sarah moved back to her command chair. What I am talking about is the consequences of that decision. She activated another display, this one showing technical specifications for weapons and ships. The designs were clearly human, but far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen. 50 years of technological development, Commander. 50 years of planning and preparation. 50 years of anger and determination. Sarah looked directly at the camera. The humans you defeated 50 years ago were explorers and colonists. The humans you will face now are something different. What are you? We are what you made us. We are the survivors of genocide who spent 50 years learning how to make sure it never happens again. Sarah stood up. Commander, I suggest you deliver our message quickly. Your people have 1 year to decide whether they want to face the new humanity as friends or as enemies. Admiral, wait. I have to ask. How many humans are really out there? Sarah smiled. Commander, 50 years ago the Confederation destroyed 47 human colonies and killed 12 billion of our people. But you missed something important. What? Human colonies were not just cities and farms. They were also hidden research stations, deep space facilities, and emergency shelters. The Confederation destroyed our visible population, but not our total population. Sarah paused for effect. We have spent 50 years rebuilding from our hidden reserves. Admiral, please. How many humans survived? Enough, Sarah said simply. More than enough. She gestured to Marcus to close the communication channel. The Zephyrian ship was already at the edge of sensor range, running back to their fleet as fast as their engines could carry them. Admiral, Colonel Martinez said, do you think they will take our message seriously? They will have no choice. The data package we planted in their systems contains evidence of human activity in dozens of star systems. Intelligence reports showing human ships, human bases, human technology. Sarah sat back down in her command chair. By the time their analysts finish studying everything we gave them, they will believe humanity has rebuilt into something much larger and more dangerous than we actually are. And when they discover the truth? Sarah looked at the display showing the sleeping humans in the stasis chambers. 50,000 people, all that remained of Earth's colonies, all depending on her to keep them safe. Commander, the truth is that we are much smaller than they will think, but we are also much more determined than they can imagine. She activated the ship's internal communication system. Marcus, begin gradual awakening protocols for all personnel. It is time for humanity to come home. As the Retribution powered up its engines and began moving toward the coordinates she had given the Zephyrians, Sarah thought about the year ahead. The Confederation would spend months debating, analyzing, and preparing. They would look for human fleets that did not exist and worry about threats that were only partly real. But they would also remember what humans had done during the war. They would remember the costs of fighting a species that refused to surrender. And maybe, just maybe, they would decide that peace was better than finding out what 50 years had taught humanity about war. Marcus, she said, transmit a message on all human emergency frequencies. Use the old Earth Defense Force codes. Yes, Admiral. What should the message say? Sarah looked out at the stars ahead of them. Somewhere out there, other human ships were waiting.